Welcome to Darkleaveswhisper, where love lingers even beyond the grave. This week, our stories are not of terror, but of tenderness. True accounts where the bond of the heart refused to fade, even after death. These are not just ghost stories. They are reminders that love is stronger than silence, stronger than time, and sometimes stronger than death itself. Listen closely and you may feel it. The brush of a presence, the echo of a promise, the whisper of love that never let go. If these stories move you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice keeps these whispers alive. Story 1: The Widow's Visit. My name is Maria. I was married to my husband David for nearly 40 years. He was my partner, my confidant, my closest friend. Our home was filled with laughter, quiet evenings, and countless memories I thought I would carry with me forever. But when David passed, suddenly, from a heart condition, everything changed. The house felt empty, silent, heavy, as if the walls themselves were mourning. Every corner echoed with absence, and I found myself walking from room to room, searching for the warmth that had once filled our home. What at first I thought the feelings I had were just grief, natural, unavoidable. It was normal to feel his presence, or maybe to imagine it. But soon, things began to happen. Small, subtle, yet undeniable. The faint scent of his cologne would drift through the hallway. When no one else had been near, his favorite chair slightly shifted, as if he had just adjusted it before leaving the room. Sometimes I will hear the soft rustle of footsteps across the hardwood floor, and my heart would leap, but no one was there. I questioned myself. Maybe it was the house settling. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me in my grief. Yet the more these moments occurred, the more I realized I wasn't imagining it. One chilly autumn evening, I sat alone in our living room. The fire flickered, casting dancing shadows across the walls. I had just finished my tea when I noticed David's wedding ring, resting in its small dish on the side table. And then it rattled. A soft musical clink. My heart skipped. I reached for it, but it hadn't fallen. No one had touched it. Then I felt it. Not with my hands, but in my chest. A warmth, like his hand brushing mine across the air. A presence undeniable, comforting. Tears ran down my cheeks, though I was smiling. From that night on, these small visits became part of my life. Sometimes it was a whisper of my name in the quiet of the night. Sometimes a fleeting shadow in the corner of my eye. Other times, the ring would vibrate gently, tapping a message I couldn't yet understand. These visits often came on nights that mattered. Anniversaries, birthdays, the anniversary of the day we first met. It was as if David was marking life's milestones with me, reminding me that our love had not faded. One snowy evening, I sat by the window, holding his wedding ring in my hands. The world outside was silent, blanketed in white, and then I heard it. His voice, soft, warm, unmistakable. "I'm still here, always." Tears streamed down my face. I whispered back, "I know. I always know." The presence lingered for a few moments, wrapping around me like a warm embrace, then slowly faded. I did not feel sadness. I felt love. Over time, I noticed patterns. Sometimes the visits were almost playful. I would leave a cup of tea on the table, and later it would be slightly moved. A picture frame tilted ever so slightly. I began to understand that these were gentle signs, not frightening, but reminders. Reminders that love persists, that the people we care for never truly leave us. I started keeping a journal, recording every encounter, every rattling ring, every whispered name, every fleeting shadow. I wrote them down not with fear, but with reverence. These moments were gifts, fragile, yet profound. I even shared some of the experiences with close friends. Some smiled skeptically, others nodded knowingly. Some love, one friend said, is too strong to fade completely. Sometimes it lingers, waiting for us to notice. And I noticed too how these experiences helped me heal. My grief didn't vanish, but it transformed. It became a quiet strength, a connection that reassured me. Even in my loneliest moments, I was not alone. I was never truly alone. One night, as I prepared for bed, I felt a soft breeze sweep across the room. The window had been closed all evening. I paused, and then I heard it. The rustle of footsteps leaving the room, soft, intimate, like a gentle brush of a hand. My heart swelled with comfort, not fear. I whispered, "I feel you, David. Thank you." These visits, subtle as they were, taught me something profound. Love does not end. It transcends time, distance, and even death. Every rattling ring, every whispered name, every fleeting shadow was proof that our hearts remember. And sometime our loved ones find a way to remind us that they are still near. Story 2. The last phone call. My name is Alex. I lost my partner, Daniel, unexpectedly, almost a year ago. Daniel was the only person who understood me better than anyone else ever could. Losing him felt like losing a piece of my own soul. The first few days were unbearable. I found myself walking through our apartment, touching objects he had left behind, searching for traces of his presence. His favorite mug, his worn slippers, the blanket he always left folded at the foot of the bed. Everything felt like a memory I could hold, but never truly touch. Then, something unexpected happened. About 2 weeks after he passed, I was sitting alone one evening. The apartment was quiet, the city humming softly outside. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. An unknown number. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the answer button. Something told me to pick up. I did. A soft, familiar voice whispered through the line, "Alex, don't cry. I'm okay." My heart leapt. The voice, it had to be him. The tone, the warmth, the rhythm. It was unmistakably Daniel. I held the phone tightly, my hands trembling. But I knew it was impossible. He had passed. How could this be real? The line was faint, filled with static, like the echoes of another time. And then the voice spoke again, softly. "I'm always with you." The call ended. My hands shook. I sat there in silence, unsure what to think. In the following nights, similar calls occurred, each one brief, gentle, full of reassurance. I began to notice patterns. The calls came on nights when I felt the most alone, when the weight of missing him was nearly unbearable. Each time, the same words, "I'm still with you. Don't be afraid." I started documenting them. I kept a notebook beside my bed. I wrote down the time, the tone, the exact words. Each call became a lifeline, a reminder that Daniel's love had not ended, that perhaps death does not mean the end of connection. Some nights I could almost sense him without the phone. I would sit quietly, feeling the faint warmth of his presence, a gentle brush across my shoulder, the faint sound of his laughter echoing in my mind. I imagined him saying, "I'm still here." always. I shared the story with a few close friends. Some were skeptical. They suggested it was grief or a trick of my mind. Others nodded knowingly. Love like yours, one friend said, doesn't fade. Sometimes it finds a way to reach you, even after someone is gone. One evening, I decided to record a call. My hands shook as I held the phone close to my ear, unsure if I was ready to hear him again. And then, there it was. That soft, familiar whisper. Alex, I'm still with you. I didn't cry this time. I smiled. I felt him. Truly felt him. A warmth, a presence, a connection that was more than memory, more than imagination. In the months that followed, the calls became less frequent, but I never stopped hearing him. Sometimes, late at night, when the apartment was still, I would hear the faintest whisper or feel the soft vibration of a phone. It reminded me Daniel was still with me, still watching over me, still letting me know that love endures even after death. I never discovered where the calls came from. The numbers were disconnected, untraceable, and yet it didn't matter. I didn't need proof. These calls were not about technology or science or explanation. They were about connection. They were about love. And love, like ours, does not end. Some nights I feel his presence more vividly than others. A fleeting warmth, a whisper in my ear, a faint smell of his cologne. Each sign, subtle as it may be, reassures me that he is near, that he remembers, that he cares, that love can stretch across realms, bridging the impossible distance between life and death. These experiences taught me something I never expected. Grief does not only take, it can also transform. It can open you to moments of wonder, to encounters that feel impossible, to a love that refuses to fade. I learned that holding on is not about refusing to let go. It is about recognizing the ways love continues to reach us, even after someone is gone. Story 3, The Midnight Letter. My name is Emily. I lost my fiancé, Liam, suddenly in a car accident almost a year ago. Losing him felt like losing a part of my own soul. Our apartment, once filled with laughter and love, felt like a hollow shell, a space haunted not by ghosts, but by absence. For weeks, I wandered through our home, as if it were a museum of our life together. His books were still on the shelves, his guitar leaned against the wall, the jacket he loved sat on the back of a chair. I would reach out to touch these objects, desperate for a sense of connection, for a trace of him that might still exist. Then it began. Around midnight one night, I found an envelope slid under my bedroom door. It was cream-colored, simple, with no return address. My hands trembled as I picked it up, and when I opened it, I saw his handwriting. Emily, I know you miss me. I am always near, watching over you. Don't grieve too hard. Live and feel me in every memory we shared. I sat on the floor, tears streaming down my face, rereading the words over and over. How could it be? No one had access to our apartment. I hadn't written it myself. I didn't understand, but I felt him. I felt the love behind each word, a warmth that filled my chest. The next night, another letter appeared, then another, each arriving at midnight like clockwork. They were never long, just simple words of love, encouragement, and remembrance. Sometimes the letters mentioned moment we had shared, the song we danced to at our engagement party, the joke only we would understand, the way he used to hold my hand while we walked through the park. With every letter, I felt Liam's presence more vividly, It was subtle at first, a faint warmth beside me, a soft breeze brushing my cheek, the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the room. But over time, I began to feel reassured. I wasn't imagining it. He was near, watching, guiding, loving. I told a few close friends about the letters. Some were skeptical, suggesting grief might be causing hallucinations or imagination. But others simply nodded, quietly listening. They understood that love sometimes refuses to leave, that even in death, a connection can endure, in ways we cannot explain, yet can deeply feel. I started documenting everything, each letter, each tiny sensation, every fleeting moment of his presence. Sometimes I would feel him tap my shoulder softly, just enough to know he was there. Other times, I will wake to find objects slightly moved. A photo frame tilted, his favorite pen resting in a different spot. These small gestures were reminders. Love lingers. Love persists. As the months passed, the letters became less frequent. Yet I never stopped feeling him near. Some nights, I would sit quietly with a cup of tea, and a gentle warmth would fill the room, almost like his hand resting on mine. Sometimes I would hear the faintest whisper of my name in the dark. Each sign, subtle as it was, reassured me. I was not alone. I never truly was. I also began to notice the timing. The letters often arrived when I was struggling most. Nights I felt the weight of grief pressing down. It was as if he knew exactly when I needed him. Each note, each gesture was a lifeline, a reminder that our love, once true, cannot fade, that it finds ways to bridge the impossible distance between life and death. Sometimes I imagine him beside me, smiling softly, encouraging me to keep living, keep laughing, keep loving. I have learned to read these signs not with fear, but with gratitude. They remind me that love is enduring, that death may change the form of connection, but it cannot erase it. I keep the letters in a small box by my bedside. I read them when I feel lonely, when the grief weighs too heavily, when I need to remember that Liam is still with me. I do not feel haunted. I feel comforted, loved, blessed. Story 4. The Hidden Comb. My name is Sophie. I never believed in signs. Not really. But after losing my partner, Daniel, I began noticing things I couldn't explain. Small, gentle nudges from a love that refused to fade. Subtle reminders that he was still near, even though he was gone. It all began with a comb, a simple, carved wooden comb that Daniel had always kept in his dresser. After he passed suddenly, I found myself drawn to it. Again and again, I would hold it in my hands, feeling the smooth ridges of the wood, imagining him brushing his hair with it, humming softly. Just holding it made me feel a little closer to him. One quiet evening, months after his passing, I reached for the comb on the dresser, and it wasn't there. I searched everywhere, drawers, nightstand, even the pockets of clothes we had shared. It was gone. My chest tightened. Panic rose in my throat. How could something so small, so ordinary, simply vanish? That night, I went to bed feeling uneasy. Around midnight, I awoke to a faint sound, soft, deliberate brushing. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. The sound seemed to come from the dresser. Slowly, carefully, I rose, hands shaking. And there it was, the comb, resting gently on top of the dresser, as if placed there just for me. When I picked it up, a wave of warmth spread through me. Not fear, not sadness, but love. It was as if Daniel were saying, "I'm still here. I am with you." Tears streamed down my cheeks. I whispered his name aloud, and in that instant, the room felt full again, filled with a presence I could feel, but not see. Over the following weeks, the comb became a silent messenger. Sometimes I will find it in a slightly different spot than I had left it, as though someone had moved it with intention. Sometimes it felt warm to the touch, though it had sat untouched for hours. Other time I would hear soft footsteps in the room, a whisper of my name, the faintest rustle of movement. I began to realize that these small moments weren't random. They were messages, gentle reminders that love does not end with death. Daniel was near, watching, reaching out, communicating in ways I could feel, though I couldn't see him. One evening, I started keeping a journal. I documented every encounter, every shift of the comb, every whisper, every fleeting shadow. Over time, patterns emerged. The comb moved when I felt particularly lonely, on nights that matter. Our anniversary, the night we shared our first kiss, the day we had first met. It was as if he knew when I needed him most. Friends often asked if I had lost my mind. They couldn't see what I saw, couldn't feel what I felt. But to me, it was undeniable. Love had not disappeared. It had changed form. No longer expressed in a hug, a handhold, or a shared glance. It existed in presence, in whisper, in a small comb that reminded me I was never alone. I began talking to him. Softly, in the quiet of the night, I would say, "I miss you. Thank you for being here." And sometimes the comb seemed to respond. A warmth, a vibration, a subtle shift, as if acknowledging my words. It was not magic, not in the fantastical sense. It was connection. Pure, unbroken connection. Months have passed. The comb still rests on the dresser, silent, patient, waiting. And though Daniel is gone from this world, I feel him every day in the warmth of sunlight spilling through the window, in the quiet breath of wind across my skin, in every small gesture that reminds me love endures. These experiences taught me something profound. Love persists. It transcends time, space, and even death. It does not vanish. It finds ways to remind us that those we love never truly leave. Sometimes I close my eyes and feel him beside me. A gentle brush on my hand, a whispered, "I'm here." A reminder that even though the world has changed, the bond we share remains unbroken. Story 5. The one only I remember. My name is Hannah. Losing my grandmother, Lynn, was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. She wasn't just family. She was my anchor, my guide, the keeper of stories, laughter, and wisdom. When she passed, it felt like the world had dimmed. Her chair sat empty, her voice silenced, her stories frozen in time, and I felt lost. In the weeks that followed, I began noticing little things. A teacup she always used would appear on the table, even though I hadn't placed it there. Her favorite scarf would be folded neatly on the back of a chair. At first, I told myself it was my imagination, grief playing tricks on me, but then came the whispering. I remembered the first time I heard it clearly. It was late at night. The house was quiet, save for the wind brushing against the windows. I woke to hear my name, soft, deliberate, unmistakably hers. "Hannah, don't be afraid." I froze, heart pounding, unsure if I should speak or just listen. A warmth filled the room, surrounding me, comforting me. I felt her presence in a way that words cannot describe. It was a gentle embrace without touch, a reassurance without sight. She was there. After that night, more signs followed. Sometimes it was a faint humming in the hallway, the tune she used to sing while cooking. Other time it was a small rose placed by my bedside, or the rocking chair slowly swaying as though someone had just stood up. I realized Leanne wasn't gone. She was finding ways to communicate, to remind me that her love still existed, still reached me. At first, I hesitated to respond. Talking to the air felt strange, almost foolish, but eventually I whispered back, "I miss you. I love you." And sometimes I would feel a faint pressure on my hand, or a soft breeze that seems to echo her voice. "I am here, always with you." It was subtle, ephemeral, but unmistakable. I began keeping a journal of these encounters. Each note documented the moments when her presence was strongest, the late night whispers, the small movements, the warmth that appeared suddenly, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Over time, patterns emerged. She would appear most vividly on significant days: her birthday, the anniversary of our favorite trip, the days I felt most lonely or afraid. I shared these experiences with a few close friends. Some laughed it off, unsure how to respond. Others quietly nodded. They had experienced loss themselves and understood that love doesn't simply end. Sometimes it transcends the physical world and reaches us in ways we cannot always explain. One evening, months after her passing, I discovered a small notebook tucked beneath my bed. It wasn't there before, and I had no memory of placing it. Inside, in her familiar handwriting, were little messages, stories from her life, advice, words of love. "Hannah, remember the love we shared. I am never truly gone. I am with you in every memory, in every heartbeat." Reading the notebook, I felt her presence more strongly than ever. I realized that death had not severed our connection. It had transformed it. She existed in whispers, gestures, warmth, and memories. A love that adapted to the limits of this world, but refused to vanish. Sometimes, late at night, I sit in her old rocking chair. I close my eyes and feel her beside me. A gentle hand on my shoulder, a whisper in my ear, a warmth that flows through my chest. In these moments, I feel complete, safe, loved. I know she is near. I know she has not left me. These experiences taught me something I never could have learned otherwise. The people we love do not truly leave. They linger in subtle ways, in gestures only we understand, in whispers that only we hear. They remind us that love is enduring, eternal, and unbroken. Even when the world forgets, even when others cannot see them, they remain uniquely ours, the ones only we remember. Thank you for listening to Dark Leaves Whisper. These stories remind us that even when life ends, love can still find a way to reach us. In whispers, in dreams, in moments that give us goosebumps. If this story touched you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experience in the comments. Sometimes the whispers in your life may echo what others have felt too. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video so you won't miss the next tale where love and the unknown meet again. Until then, listen closely. The dark leaves still whisper.